The Good Ride, second less every year for over 10 years. So this is the Good Ride review of the Ride War Pig, and I believe this is the medium or the large. I didn't see anything on this, but it feels like it's about a 154 in comparison to the 151s I had. It seemed like it was about 3 centimeters longer, so somewhere around there. They have different sizing. I rode this with Union Atlas primarily, and my Adidas Tactical ADVs, and mainly spring conditions, kind of sometimes hard in the morning, sometimes super slushy, and sometimes just right. Like today, the last day I was riding this, had some really good conditions. And I think, I know this board has a lot of fanfare, but I think I would have been a little happier. This was fun, but I would have been happier with one size down. I think it would have like matched up a little better. And the way I kind of see this board is it's kind of like all mountain snow surfy, kind of short fatty, kind of, hard to define, because it's a fun board. The turning is pretty fun, the buttering is pretty fun, but it does nothing wonderful. It just does everything pretty well. So it kind of has that all mountainy kind of, compromise across the board kind of thing. So you can do a lot of shit with this board. Like for example, the United Shapes Orbit, that I mainly compared it against. It was the closest board I had. I would have loved to have compared the new modern camber, yes, Optimistic, but I didn't have it at the time that I had this. I will have the Optimistic probably this fall, as you're reading this, but I probably won't have this. So it's always, it's hard to line everything up and do a proper comparison. But what I found is when I was riding this, buttering, playing around was pretty good. It felt a little wide for my size 9 boots, where this felt just right, even though, I'm not sure how wide this is, but it comes out pretty wide. You can kind of see, like, there's a lot of space, and I felt that width, where this is like high 25s. This feels way over 26. And when I carved and got air, I was much happier on the United Shapes. And if that's what you're looking for, it's boards like the K2 Carve Air, it's boards like the United Shapes Orbit, it's board like the Yes Optimistic, and so on and so forth. Those short fatties that really love to drive out a hard turn. Where with this, it's fun to turn, but it really kind of starts to fall apart in a carve. And you can kind of feel that, especially if you ride with another board. But where this shines is it butters and it plays around and it turns well. The turning experience is fun. The carving experience is just average, maybe less than. If you want to get out and make carves, it's way more fun to be on something like those boards. However, if you want to butter, if you want to hit the park, if you want to ride switch, despite this taper, I felt like it rode switch really well. I mainly rode it off the reference stance, just a little wider than the reference stance of 22 and centered on board. I just followed the reference stance and went a little wider. I did set it back once and it gets a little surfier. It's going to float really well in powder. I could just tell by the way it addressed some deeper slush one day that I rode, but and also you can just tell, like flat to rocker. No setback on side cut, but the setback on board is pretty cool. So you can check the On the Table review for that kind of stuff. You can see it's got some decent float. I didn't feel the taper as much as I thought, and I really felt like it's got a lot. It can do a lot of things, so I can see why people really like it. But when I go to this, like, you know, if I want to, you know, more freestyle, I'd rather be probably on the Machete from Ride or you know, other boards like that. If you know, I want to get more kind of short, fatty, carvy, you know, the United Shapes Orbit and the Optimistic seem to have that more locked up. But if you want a short fatty as your one board quiver, this is a great choice as long as you match it up. I think the smaller size would have really come alive for me underfoot. So this is just probably one size too big, and it's kind of how I felt like with the Yes Optimistic. When I was riding the 54, I didn't like it as much, and then I got a 51, and I was like, oh man, this thing just lights up and becomes an amazing board. Edge hold, I would say, you know, the United Shapes definitely held in the harder patches a little better, but the edge hold's good. It just, as the snow gets harder, it kind of starts to let go. That's kind of like a Ride thing. It feels damp, but not dead. Like some ride boards can feel like ultra damp to the point where, you know, you just want to bomb, and it takes everything underfoot away from you. So some people love that and some people don't. It's a personal preference thing. For me, I like to feel a little more liveliness underfoot, and this had some of that. It didn't feel like that ultra super mega damp ride board. It had some light semi-poppy playful personality. But yeah, you know, I had fun riding around the mountain. I had fun riding regular, riding switch. I would have loved to have checked this out in powder, especially with this width. But you know, it's something I don't think I'd be super stoked on weaving in and out of trees. I think if I sized down one, I think it would be amazing. And then you know, so take this review with a grain of salt. I think if you got if I got a one size smaller, I think this would be a very fun board, and it fits a wide variety of you know, ways. It has, how do I say this? It has a wide variety of ways you can approach the mountain and park. So that's kind of fun. It makes it pretty diverse, and I think a lot of people can have fun on this board. So there you have it. That's the Ride War Pig. That's the Good Ride take.